How's it going, class? Okay, so video talking about power and how it relates to relationship, given the actual the assignment. Chose to do it in video format. Probably talk a little bit better about it, but just kind of push myself out into different types of areas where I'm not used to doing things, i.e., a video like to explain things. So, without further ado, let's get it started. All right, so what's asking about analyze the five sources of power. So I'll just go ahead and read them off. I got my notes here. So legitimate power comes from obviously somebody being assigned, somebody talking about, when they were put there, either managerial, supervisory, the business owner, just somebody in a position that has legitimate power to be like, all right, cool, you guys get to do this. That's where that kind of power comes from because they're assigned. Obviously, you can't have like the lowest man that's a follower be given demands like that because they just don't have that type of power. Reward power comes in kind of also associated with that kind of stuff, but it's different in the fact that it's not really by assignment, it's by the ability to provide rewards. So if they're like, hey man, I'll give you $200 to do this, they're in a position to do reward power. I guess I could relate this. I'm not really sure if it'll fit, but it'll be like a let's say a homeowner getting the landscaping company money to do things. Then that would be reward power. Hey, I will pay you to do this, and that would be that kind of transaction. The third one is expert power, something that I'm really familiar with, and at least in my actual line of work as a instructor pilot. The people that really you should listen to are the people that have the experience and are qualified to do certain things. If they're ready to get exam flights and things of that nature, you listen to them when certain policies or bulletins come out, as opposed to a regular line co-pilot that's new. That's where they get that power from being an expert in their field. Next up is referent power, is basically whether people like you or they want to respect you. Somebody like that kind of gets to influence and have a type of power by the sheer, just the likability factor. And so that really is kind of based less on what you do, but more on how you get perceived as. Finally, it will be a coercive power. And this is also aligned with with the actual the assignment. So if a person's in charge of you, they or of somebody that has the ability to take things away, that's coerciveness. So like the power the CHP has, if they could take away your license by an infraction, they have a coercive power they could take away. But they're not really your boss, but they have the ability to take that away. I was reading also with mindtools.com. They would have an article about a new type of power. It is, and which we're seeing now in these types of ages, are informational power. So the type of power a person would have is the power to control a narrative, which is huge now with Twitter and Facebook, where they're the ones controlling the message. Therefore, the reality that's even based is basically bought by them and what they control as far as information. All right, so summarize the relationship between influence and power. So influence and power are they're two separate. They kind of go together. They're always mentioned together, but the way I've read it is that influence is not really it's not a type of power, but it can bring back the biggest amount of change. Power is just how somebody sees them according to the five sources. If they're legitimate, if they're reward, but influence, it actually brings the change. So if a person's a legitimate power, they get to be assigned over people. But that doesn't mean that people will do what they want them to do. They'll just basically say that, the boss said something. Influence is the to get people to change their attitude towards something and to want to do it. So that's the relationship between them. They're not really the same, and they're two different types, and one brings about more change than the other. All right, so the next bullet here is uh, determine how relationships between leaders and staff affect influence and power. That to me is basically the leader usually kind of normally does the leader, the follower, the situation. They're able to kind of figure out what kind of quote unquote currency they have to make change. If they have enough credibility, is their power sufficient? Do they have enough rewards? That's really how it's mostly looked at. But there's also things such as being a follower, that they also have currency in the power department as well. If they have if they're able to influence a lot of the followers, then they may not be the leader, but they are influencing something. So let's say if a person's not a supervisor, but at the same time they're able to influence the mass majority of people, then whether they like it or not, they also have a power by not being the leader. So that's the difference. Usually the leader doesn't have to doesn't really, unfortunately, most times they don't really care what the effects are, but the followers are not necessarily either contrary to belief. Don't they also have power where people think that they don't? So that's really it. That's the actual assignment in a nutshell. Hopefully, you guys get a lot out of this. All right, thanks.